Welcome back to Question Period on this Sunday. Canada-U.S. trade talks have yet to restart after that anti-tariff ad by the government of Ontario last month supposedly angered U.S. President Donald Trump. Despite Prime Minister Mark Carney's apology to Trump for the ad, the U.S. envoy to Canada, Pete Huckstra, pointed to it in an armchair discussion this week, again labeling it political interference and seemingly referencing a reported altercation he had with Ontario's representative in Washington, David Paterson, over the issue. Have a listen.
I was kind of passionate earlier this month about, that the deal got blown up. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, because, the strategy was to put wins on the board. Okay,
for both countries.
For both countries.
With me now is Ontario's representative in Washington, David Patterson. Hi, Mr. Patterson. A pleasure to see you as always. Thank you for making the time.
Hi, Vashi. Nice to see you too.
I have a number of questions on where things stand and what your conversations are like in Washington, but I do have to start with that reported altercations the first time we've spoken to you since then. Has the ambassador called you to apologize for it as the premier asked him to?
No, and I probably didn't expect that, but I did see that there were a couple of additional events that he was at up in Canada where I think there was a Thanksgiving event where things seemed a little happier, and that's a good thing. I'm pleased for that, and let's just say I signed my Christmas card to him yesterday, so I hope he's feeling better.
So what is your impression, I guess, of what led to it and what it's really about?
Well, I think there were a number of things. It was certainly a surprising sort of explosion in a room of 200 people. And so I'm not sure that exactly what all the targets were. We did certainly hear a lot of comments out of Washington that there were a number of things of frustration in terms of how trade discussions were going. The ad is a bit of a conversation piece, but it's hard not to think about some of the social media things that came from the president during our election. I think even on election day, and certainly advertising in the United States is nothing new for countries around the world. I'm old enough to remember some of the Japanese ads during some of the auto tariff times in the 1990s, and even Canada's advertised in the past on softwood lumber in the United States. So I do suspect there was more to all of that, but I think what's really important is getting on with the discussions on trade, and of course we want our ambassadors to be a really important part of that, and so hopefully we can turn the corner and not respond to that. As I'd say, my mama taught me better.
In that vein, and I ask this because I think it is important to try and figure out what really led to this impasse in order to overcome it, right? Do you have conversations with lots of people there outside of that altercation that happened in Canada. Do you, what does your gut tell you about what really put these talks or derailed these talks?
Well, first of all, I'm back in Washington, and I do actually see a number of things that are sort of changing in the discussion from our interactions with business and Congress, even just this week. And in particular, I sort of call it the 4 C's of trade down here, which is the Congress, the courts, the companies and their submissions, and the cost of living. And all those things are having an impact now on our need to get on. And as we start to get into December, and we'll turn the page into next year, we're going to be discussing the USMCA and its renewal before long as well. So we really hope that the government of Canada can make some progress and to deal with some of these sectoral tariffs that are primarily hurting Ontario, but also Quebec and other people across Canada, because getting those, sort of clearing the deck of those things before we get into discussions on the USMCA in detail next year would, I think, be really helpful for everyone, including for U.S. business.
What do you think will get the two parties back to the table?
I think the economy will get the two parties back to the table. And as I mentioned, companies, I mean, this week we've been able to spend a lot of time reading through the submissions that have been made by American companies and associations on the USTR review on the USMCA. And overwhelmingly, the message is, let's extend and strengthen that agreement. And companies don't want to see tariffs. They want to see business expand. And Canada is critical to them because not only are we a source of trade, we are their largest market. We are Canada's twice as big as China in terms of buying goods from the United States. And we forget in areas like the auto sector that we are their number one buyer of automobiles. And there's some 130,000 people in the United States whose jobs are directly related to making cars that Canadians buy. And even more in terms of people in the farming community that make farm goods that Canadians buy. And so everybody wants to see inflation kept down, and they want to see the economy moving forward down here in Washington. And just in the last couple of weeks after the shutdown, people coming back from their districts, I think they're getting an earful. And they want to get on with it.
So the key question I think out of that is, and you and I have spoken about this before, those facts as you lay them out have always been the case. In the previous Trump administration, there was an ability for lawmakers at the state level or from different states represented in Washington to be able to get through to Trump and the people around him based on the economic impact of what you are laying out there. That has not been the case, and they have not been nearly as vocal over the course of this second Trump administration. But to your point, do you have the impression at all that that is in some way or in any way in the near future going to change?
Yeah, I do. And just this week, I had Ontario Minister Carolyn Mulroney down with me, and we met with all the top, both Republican and Democratic trade representatives in Congress. And they're dealing with the White House. They're talking to the president on a regular basis. As I said, they've just had, through shutdown, 2 months of time in their districts talking to their businesses and the like. And I think there's a bit of a fresh look at the need to do it. And there's also some questions as to what will be the role of Congress as we go through the USMCA renewal. And I think everybody agrees that the administration would prefer to not go through Congress and to be able to get sort of a clean renewal of the USMCA. But to do that, we have to solve problems. And so I think that is starting to happen. I think there's a lot of respect for Ambassador Greer at USTR, who really understands supply chains and trade. So that's why I remain optimistic and try not to get sort of drawn down into, a conversation at an Ottawa event. Those things we'll get through. What's more important is the economy for both of our countries, and boy, do we need each other now.
I wonder, though, if you could reflect on, I totally understand your point. I think you know as well as anyone why that those stories generated as many headlines as they did, right? I think it's sort of shocking for Canadians to see the way in which the president's representative in this country is communicating. Do you take anything from that?
Well, as I said, I've met Ambassador Huckstra several times. I actually kind of like the guy. He's different. I've had people use salty language with me before. I don't get too upset about it. I don't say anything back. As I say, my mom taught me better. And, we have a certain expectation that our diplomats are going to really help us to solve problems. And listen, it's really important to listen. I try and do that as much as I can down here, from American business, meeting with people in Congress, at the White House as well. And we are welcomed when we come in as Canadians on that. So I think we sometimes in our bubble in Canada can get a little bit worried and focused on those kinds of things. But I'll tell you the secret, down here in Washington, nobody's heard about that event. Frankly, I wonder how many people down here know the name of our ambassador to Canada. So, you know, we need to work with the people that are making decisions down here, and I think on we go, and try and make sure we get the best outcome for our economy.
I'll leave it on that note. Mr. Patterson, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Vashi.
David Patterson is Ontario's representative in Washington. When we come back today, a new suitor in Sweden with Canada's relationship with the U.S. on the rocks. A Swedish-based company is shooting its shot, pitching Canada as an alternative fighter jet. Is Canada seriously entertaining that proposal? Sweden's Minister of National Defense, Pål Jonson, is with me after a short break.